Greetings loyal subscribers and honoured guests, welcome to another episode of PS2 Tuesdays. This week I want to talk about one of my all-time favourite games, one that I will keep coming back to over the years for a complete playthrough. The game in question is Rez, and if you've never played it before, I heartily recommend it. Even though it originally came out on the Dreamcast way back in 2001, it remains a stunning audiovisual feast today thanks to its amazing art style, stonking soundtrack, and simple yet fun gameplay. Together with some very nice feedback thanks to the rumble feature in the PS2 pad, all the elements combine into one absorbing experience that is known as synesthesia. Creator Tetsuya Mizuguchi, who had previously worked on the excellent racing title Sega Rally Championship, had a love of music and was keen to incorporate it into the gameplay of his titles. His first attempt at doing so was Space Channel 5, a game that I also really enjoy, and a few years later the sequel was released, which had a more diverse musical style and improved gameplay. However, I don't think his vision of an interactive musical experience was truly realised until he made Rez. The look of the game was inspired by the work of the artist Kandinsky, and the working title was The K Project. There is also no doubt that there are elements of the movie Tron present, particularly in the wireframe look of some of the art assets and the neon colours that pervade each level. Now that I've given you a bit of background, let's break down the elements of the game and see what makes it so great. The footage I've used for this review is from the Xbox 360 re-release of the game called Rez HD, because it's in widescreen and is much prettier. While Rez is an on-rail shooter and so the plot is quite basic, there still is one present. The basic idea is that you're attempting to remove a virus that has invaded the computer system and is attacking the central AI, which goes by the name of Eden. There's not much more to it than that, but it does inform the visual design of the game. Rez has a very distinctive look, with each level tending to stick to one main colour, such as orange, green or purple. There is a combination of hollow wireframe objects, full shaded polygons, particle effects and sometimes FMV in the backgrounds, especially in Area 5, the final level of the game. The graphics still look really nice on the PS2 and Dreamcast, but in full widescreen and in HD on the 360, it looks absolutely amazing and stands the test of time incredibly well. My only minor gripe about the visuals is that sometimes there is a lot going on with many enemies, background elements, explosions and bullets on screen at the same time. This can make it hard to distinguish what can actually hurt you, but it's really only a problem when you play the game for the first time. As you become used to it, you will learn what you have to shoot down first to avoid being hurt. This is probably my absolute favourite thing about Rez, and it goes hand in hand with the visuals. Firstly, the sound effects. As you fire your weapon, take down enemies and shoot down the little satellite looking thing that moves you on to the next layer of the area you're playing, everything makes its own unique sound, all of which is timed perfectly with the background music. This gives you the feeling of being part of the soundtrack and is a wonderful design. Then we have the music itself, which is all excellent. Each area of the game starts out at layer 1 and the music is very minimal to start with. Maybe there are just a few simple drum beats or the sound of the enemies as you shoot them down. As you move through the layers on the way to layer 10 and the boss fight though, the music evolves and becomes ever more elaborate until eventually you have a fully formed piece of music. A variety of artists created the music for Rez, with the most notable probably being Adam Freeland with his track Fear, which is used during the final area. The rest of the tunes are all great too though. Boss fights usually have their own music separate from that of the areas, though once or twice the tunes do flow all the way into the boss battles.
Creation. 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 Creation.
Mechanically, Rez is actually very similar to other on-rail shoot-em-ups, such as Panzer Dragoon and Star Fox. You control your avatar while it is constantly moving forward throughout the level, guiding a crosshair to shoot down enemies. You can lock onto multiple targets by holding down the fire button, sweeping the cursor over them and then releasing. You can also turn around at certain points to see enemies behind you or to the side of you. Typically the enemies themselves won't do you any damage, but they shoot fireballs, missiles, or sharp deadly discs at you that can either be shot down or avoided. At the very start of the game your character is in a humanoid form. Shooting blue power-ups will fill up a meter in the bottom left of the screen, which when completed will advance you to the next form, up to 5. This is basically the number of hits you can take before game over. Each time you collide with an enemy bullet you'll be taken back a form, with the lowest one being an amoeba type being. There is also a red power-up that can be collected to give you an overdrive, useful for doing focus damage to a boss's weak point, or for clearing out the screen of enemies. Finally there are nodes, the little satellite thingies that have to be shot 10 times to advance to the next layer of the area. There are 10 layers per area and you have to progress through each of them in order to have analysed that area 100%, a requirement to advance to the final area. The boss fights can be fairly lengthy, but are not too tricky once you know what you're supposed to be shooting at to hurt them, and what can do you damage. Sometimes you have to be quite quick to make sure nothing nasty hits you, but there are typically plenty of health items that you shouldn't die altogether. The gameplay of Res really is elevated by the presentation though. Music, sound effects, visual style and vibration all work together with the gameplay to make it a very special experience, one that you really should definitely play through at least once. While the game does play very similarly to something like Panzer Dragoon, the style of it does make it feel very different, and this is where the innovation lies. I think the design is extremely smart and succeeds in its goal of making an interactive, synesthetic experience. I'm not sure if the game sold enough copies to be considered a success. It's not really a game that I often hear people talking about much. It did get a spiritual sequel in the form of Child of Eden though, which I intend to talk about at a later date. While the game can be completed in little more than an hour, like a great album I do come back to re-experience it time and time again. Once you have completed the campaign for the first time, you do unlock Beyond mode, which lets you play through again, while changing up the visuals and making the gameplay a little bit more challenging. So there is some extra stuff to do and unlock. It's still not a lengthy game though. That doesn't matter much to me, I definitely feel like I've got my money's worth from it over the years. Used copies of the PS2 version can be found for 10 to 15 quid, while the digital version of Res HD for the Xbox 360 and PS3 can be bought for £6.75. For that price you would be daft to pass it up, but if you're still not sure if it's your thing or not, you can play through the first area in the trial version. Res may not keep you playing for a long time in one go, but the captivating gameplay and sublime sense of style keeps me returning to it time and time again. I am glad to have it as part of my PS2 collection, and I urge you to add it to yours as well. That's all we have for this week. There are now just 2 more episodes left for this season. I'll see you again in a fortnight for a look at Red Dead Revolver. Until then, take care.